He locks his front door at night, and something happens that no one talks about. The noise stops. Not the noise outside, the noise inside. The argument he didn't have. The apology he didn't have to give. The version of himself he didn't have to perform for anyone. And somewhere, a stranger looks at that same door and thinks, "Poor guy." In this video, we're going to take apart that assumption piece by piece, because the psychology behind it is nothing like what you've been told. Some men don't live alone because life broke them. They live alone because they finally understood something the rest of us are still afraid to admit. We were handed a script before we could even read. Grow up, find someone, build a life around them. That's the finish line. That's the reward. So when a man doesn't cross it, people assume he's still running the race, just losing badly, heartbroken, undesirable, hiding something. But here's the question nobody stops to ask. What if he already finished a different race? Start here. Loneliness and solitude are not the same feeling wearing different clothes. Loneliness is an ache. It's reaching for a phone that won't ring the way you want it to. It's sitting in a full house and still feeling like nobody's home. That kind of alone hurts because it wasn't chosen. Chosen solitude doesn't hurt. It settles. When a man actively decides this is his life, his nervous system responds completely differently. There's no tension underneath it, no waiting for something to fill the gap. His mind isn't on alert, it's at rest. Think about what a relationship actually costs, underneath all the good parts. You're tracking someone else's mood before you've even finished your coffee. You're rehearsing conversations in your head before they happen. You're compromising on the restaurant, the temperature, the plans, the tone of your voice when you're tired and don't feel like being pleasant. None of that is bad. It's just expensive. It runs in the background all day, every day, like a tab you never close. The man who lives alone isn't paying that tab. When he shuts his door, the transaction ends. Nobody to manage, nobody to read, nobody to brace for, just quiet, and a version of himself that doesn't need adjusting for an audience. Pause on that for a second. When was the last time you were fully, unguardedly yourself, with nobody in the room to account for? There's a strange kind of freedom in the small things too, the ones that never make it into the highlight reel of anyone's life. Leaving the dishes until tomorrow without a single word of judgment. Eating cereal for dinner because that's what he wanted. Keeping the apartment at whatever temperature actually feels right instead of the temperature that keeps the peace. None of it sounds like much on its own. But stack those tiny freedoms up over a year, over 5 years, and what you get is a life with almost no friction in it. A life where every room he walks into was arranged by him, for him, and nobody else has a vote. Here's where it gets interesting, because emotional regulation is where most people quietly struggle. A lot of us were never taught how to sit with a bad feeling. We were taught how to hand it to someone else. Bad day at work? Vent to a partner until the weight lifts. Feeling low? Wait for someone to say the right thing. There's nothing wrong with leaning on people, but there's a quieter kind of strength in not needing to. The man who lives alone has had to build that muscle out of necessity. Nobody's coming to talk him down, so he learned how to talk himself down. Nobody's going to tell him he did a good job today, so he learned to recognize it himself. That's not coldness, that's self-sufficiency, and it's rare. Think about what that does to a person over time. Every time he calms himself down without help, he proves something to his own mind. He proves he can survive his own bad days. And once you've proven that to yourself enough times, fear starts losing its grip. He's not scared of a hard week anymore because he already knows how the story ends. He gets through it, alone, every time. People will still call him a loner. It's easier to shrink a thing you don't understand than to sit with the discomfort of realizing he's actually fine. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one. When you remove relationship friction from a life, something happens to a person's focus that borders on unfair. Think about how much mental bandwidth gets swallowed by relationship maintenance. The unresolved argument replaying in your head at 2 a.m., the slow-burning worry about where things are headed, the energy spent managing two people's needs instead of one. It's invisible, but it's constant, and it adds up to hours every single week that never go toward anything else. When that noise disappears, all of that energy comes back. Psychologists describe this as dropping into a flow state, a kind of deep, uninterrupted focus that's almost impossible to sustain when your attention is split between your own goals and someone else's feelings. This is why you'll notice something odd about men who've built this kind of life. They read until 3 a.m. because nothing is pulling them back to bed. They disappear into a project for an entire weekend and come out the other side with something built. They pick up a skill most people only talk about learning, not because they're special, because their time is finally, entirely their own, and time you don't have to share stretches in ways you don't expect. Ask yourself honestly, what would you build if every hour you currently spend managing someone else's needs was suddenly handed back to you? There's a version of this that shows up quietly in careers too. The promotion that came from 3 extra hours a week nobody else was giving to the job. The side project that turned into something real because there was no one waiting at home wondering why he was still at his desk. None of this makes a relationship the enemy. It just shows what happens when a person stops splitting themselves in half. Now let's kill the myth before it takes over this whole story. People here lives alone and their brain fills in the rest. Hermit, isolated, allergic to people. That's not what this is, and psychology is clear on this point too. Humans still need connection to stay well. Nobody is wired to thrive in total isolation, and the healthy version of this man knows that better than anyone. He's not cutting people out. He's just stopped confusing romantic connection with human connection, like they're the same need wearing 2 different masks. He has people, a small circle he actually trusts, not a wide one he performs for. Family he shows up for, maybe someone younger who looks up to him, whether he realizes it or not. He laughs, he shows up, he means it when he's there. The difference is what happens after. When the night winds down and everyone heads home, he's not devastated to be alone again. He's relieved, not because people are a burden, but because he doesn't need anyone to complete a picture that's already whole. Sit with that distinction for a moment, because it changes everything. He enjoys people. He just doesn't need them to feel like a full person. There's also something worth saying about the moments he doesn't perform for anyone. No one is watching him fold laundry badly or sing off-key in the kitchen or cry at a movie he'll never admit made him cry. There's a kind of dignity in a life where the private version of you and the public version of you are almost the same person, because nobody's around to require the difference. So what's the actual takeaway here? The part that matters even if you're not living alone and never plan to. It's this. A life built entirely around waiting for someone else to complete it is a fragile life. Not because relationships are the problem, but because outsourcing your peace, your identity, your sense of being enough to another person means you're only ever as steady as they are. The man who lives alone figured out how to be the steady one for himself first. Whatever comes after that, a relationship, a marriage, a family, gets to be an addition to a life that already works, not a rescue for one that doesn't. That's the real shift. Not alone forever, just alone long enough to stop needing anyone to save him. He didn't step away from the story we were all handed because he failed at it. He stepped away because he wrote a better one, on his own terms. And it turned out he liked that version more. And maybe the real question isn't why is he doing this alone? Maybe it's why does it scare us so much that he's doing just fine?
Like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe my channel now. Thank you for watching.